Series that's on FX. It appears every Tuesday night, 9 Central, The People versus O.J. Simpson. Our next guest, Courtney B. Vance, plays Johnny Cochran. Mr. Courtney B. Vance, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. McGraw. Love your town.
You are phenomenal, by the way, in this. You are tremendous.
Thank you, sir. Had a great time doing it.
Did you have any idea?
Kick me off the set.
Did you have any idea while you were filming it that it was going to connect as much as it is with the American public?
Well, we knew what we did. We knew that all of us, including all the extras, the galley in the courtroom people, the galley people, and the people who played the jury, we all knew we had done something special and phenomenal because we were all in it. And you never know how it's going to be received. You never know how it's going to be edited and cut and marketed. So that's we would never in a million years, we would hope, but we would never in a million years think that everyone would be would embrace us the way they have. And so it rarely happens. And when it happens, we just enjoy it. We enjoy every minute of it because the next one, people will just throw you to the curb.
Now, are you watching it right along with the rest of us? Like tonight, are you going to watch it?
They give us some CDs that have them on them, so we can actually watch in advance, so we know what we're talking about.
Right.
Because I barely remember the 5th episode as opposed to the 4th one,
sure,
as opposed to the 6th one, because we did them. We did 3 or 4 or 5 at the same time, so I don't remember which one was
right.
which.
It seems like the actor who's playing Chris Darden, Sterling Brown, who happens to be from St. Louis, it seems like he's the moral center of the whole story. Would you agree?
I think from the prosecution side, he tried to tell. He was caught in the middle. I mean, I think that's just part of the. It was a Greek tragedy in my mind, and everybody had to play their roles. And he tried to fight against playing his role, but he was manipulated back into it by F. Lee Bailey and myself. And Marsha put him in that position to avoid Garcetti putting someone in to replace her second,
right,
Hodges. And that person potentially taking over from her. So she didn't want anybody to take over, so she checkmated him with Chris Darden and then tried to tell him that he wasn't there because he was black. Of course he was there because he was black.
Yeah.
So he felt that, and he acted out accordingly.
Johnny Cochran is no longer living, so how did you get ready for the role if you didn't have a chance to talk to him at all? I
didn't want to talk to anybody. I wanted to read as much as I could about him, about what other people said about him, and then I didn't want to watch any footage because I didn't want to get. I felt that I would force me to imitate, and I didn't want that in my head because I felt that if I could catch the spirit of the man, then I knew we would be working really, really fast, so I wouldn't be able to stop and make sure I was, had the right intonation and inflection and all that. I had to catch him and then jump in and just hope and pray that everything was coming out the way it should. And I think I'm so glad I did it the way I did because I wasn't in my head at all. And I just had the biggest hurdle was trying to get all that verbiage, keep up with all the verbiage that was coming at me episode after episode after episode. So I was so glad I approached it the way I did because it allowed me to free my mind for to just get those lines in my head.
There's so many things that we've learned from this series that many of us lay people did not know. I don't know how closely you actually watched the first trial, but what are some of the things that may have surprised you coming out of the show?
I didn't watch the trial at all much. I was in and out because I was a huge O.J. Simpson fan, and when that Bronco chase happened, I was in a state of shock, and I couldn't watch it. It was too much, and the fact that they put it on television, I was like, no, please don't do that. And so I had to go in and out very much, so much. So all of it, everything that I I learned was education for me. So, there was, just the fact that the both sides were told by the jury consultant that the case was about race, and Marcia and the prosecution poo-pooed it, and he told her about her hair. He told her what they feel about her. She needs to soften her appearance and her just her way. She was a little brittle, and she didn't. She didn't pay any attention to the fact that they said the jury needs to be, this case about race, so you might want to put it in Santa Monica, not downtown. I mean, they told her the whole thing, and they discounted everything. They did not believe that was important or relevant, and Johnny Cochran knew it was relevant and did everything that he was advised to do. He did it. So it wasn't like that they were surprised by anything. They chose not to listen to the advice that was given to them by the jury consultant. They thought he was a hack.
It's as relevant today as it was 20 years ago, and I think in some ways, Courtney B. Vance, who plays Johnny Cochran in The People vs. O.J. on FX, you needed the 20 years to digest it. You need to look at it through the Ferguson prism, through today's world, to finally understand what the other side was actually saying.
I think people just needed time because it was so. Race is one of those discussions that we're not supposed to talk about, and if you don't talk about it, as Dr. Janetta Cole says, you got to talk about your differences until your differences don't make a difference, and if you don't talk about it, those differences are in the forefront, and right. you can't understand why a young black man would have the feeling or be up on edge about a policeman coming up unless you understand that the way we were raised to view policemen. We weren't raised to view policemen to want to be a policeman. Little white boys and little white girls are potentially raised to want to be a policeman. That's not in my consciousness. It's not in our consciousness. It's more of adversarial. And so you have to understand the history, the strange fruit on the trees, and the Emmett Till, and being in courtrooms, and them not hearing us, and even if the evidence was completely in our favor. So that's what happened when you heard cheering from the black community. It wasn't about O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson admitted he's not black. He's O.J. This was about Johnny's work in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And in the biggest stage in history in the United States, in a court of law, that a black man triumphed. Was justice served? No, justice wasn't served. 2 people are dead. But that's what the African Americans, for the most part, were cheering about.
Courtney B. Vance, we're out of time.
That's what happened when myself and Tony Goldwyn were watching the show, watching the verdict.
Yeah.
He jeered, and we had to talk about it.
The People versus O.J. Simpson, Courtney B. Vance on FX. Tonight is the next installment. It is must-watch TV. Courtney B. Vance, we are super fans of you and your wife. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with us.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. 8:59 here, Big 550.